proud to have you on what it amounts to my front lawn. But in many ways, it's right up this street that my career started in politics. It was a bunch of tenant leaders who were perhaps, I always say I got my BA from Stanford, but my PhD on the streets of Newark. It was a bunch of tenant leaders that pushed me into running for office because they really believed that was the best way to make a difference in this neighborhood. I've long since believed that life is about purpose and not position, and I tried to stay true to the purpose that brought me into politics in the first place. That's why if you're in my office in Washington, it's a map of this neighborhood that sits behind me in my desk to focus on the folks who first took a chance on me and put me into the game. And what my neighbors are concerned with, and I've heard all around the country, is that people in America are losing faith that this nation will work for them. They're beginning to believe that too many folks are going to get left out or left behind. They're beginning to believe that the forces that are tearing us apart are stronger than the forces that bond us together as a people, as a country. I'm running for president because I want to address these issues. We are a nation, the story of who we are. Everybody who's gathered on my front walk here, we are all here because Americans from different backgrounds, different races, different religions, even different political parties stood together, worked together, fought together to make this country stand for something. What makes us unique and different is that we have folks from all over the planet Earth, from Eastern Europe to Asia, from Western Europe to Africa, whose DNA is now on this soil, and by us working together, we did things that other people thought were impossible. My parents' generation knew that if we came together, blacks and whites, Christians and Jews, we can upend Jim Crow. We used to be a people that can point into the sky and look at the moon and change it from a dream to a destiny. There's no Republican or Democratic way to get there. You definitely don't get there by fighting each other, beating each other down, and dividing people against themselves. We did those things because we found our common ground. Now, this is not easy. It's the tough work of building a great community, or what King called the beloved community. It's hard to do that. But it's about time we get to the hard work of building this nation to be who we want us to be, our best values, our best ideals, the best of who we are. We need leadership in this country that understands what patriotism means. And patriotism is love of country, and you can't love your country unless you love your fellow countrymen and women. It doesn't mean we're always going to agree or some days always like each other. But we got to extend each other grace, less judgment, and more hard work to find common ground to do the things that other people on the planet Earth don't think we can do. We're a nation that leads, and we've got to get back to doing that together. So I'm happy to answer any questions you all want, but I'm grateful, seriously grateful, to have you all in Newark. For those of you who only passed through our airport, take some time to the downtown and see the new buildings we built, new hotels, go up the street, see the new supermarket we put in place, see the schools that are now rank us as the #1 city in America for beat the odds schools, high poverty, high performance. We're doing great things.
Senator,
my old friend.
You've never invited me to your house.
And after this, I'm going to tell you to get off my stairs. Get off my lawn.
Most of the Democrats I've talked to are skeptical about your message of love. They say that man cannot live on love alone, and they wonder if you're ready to take on a hard-nosed Donald Trump.
Well, I called on Cruz first because when I was mayor, he gave me my most difficult questions. I start with the hardest first. Look, love ain't easy. And our history in this country, some of the toughest, most heroic people that I admire, whose pictures hang in my office, whose statues are in the Capitol, they're folks that took on armed hate, billy clubs and dogs and fire hose with unarmed love, and they took down Jim Crow. They're folks like a great New Jersey and Alice Paul, who loved this country so much she was willing to demand that it live up to its promise. She was the first person ever arrested in front of the White House because she refused to let people in power undermine the power of the people, the rights of women. The people I admire are the people that lead by calling out the best of who we are and not the worst. So I'm running for president because I believe in us. I believe in these values. I'm going to put them before the American people. Hey, and if that's not what they want, then I won't be the next president of the United States. But I know my country. I know the goodness and the decency across this land. I've experienced it. My family I'm in New Jersey because of that decency of white families who would not let my parents be denied housing because of the color of their skin. That's the kind of patriotism, that's the kind of love my family's experienced. I know it exists in our country. I believe in it. I'm putting my faith in that message, that heart, and that reality in America.
Senator,
Yes, sir.
if a lot of people in New Jersey are going to sit and look at this and say, you know, we had another guy who ran for president 4 years ago and he spent a lot of time not doing his job. How do you convince people that you can run a campaign and yet not make the same mistakes that Chris Christie made?
Look, the voters in New Jersey put their faith in me, and I will never, ever let them down. I'm going to continue to be an active force in the Senate, and at a time of cynicism in Washington, heck, if you just look at the last Congress, at a time that people don't believe Washington can get big things done, in the last Congress alone, I was able to work across the aisle with my partners and get big pieces of legislation done. You know, the system of mass incarceration in this nation is a shame to a nation that is the land of the free. And I, with working with others, passed the first bill that finally takes a real crack at ending mass incarceration. Even something I realized, that capital in this country is lazy, doesn't invest. In fact, about 5 cities have the overwhelming majority of investment capital going there. I wrote legislation with a Republican across the aisle that now is law and is going to get hundreds of billions of dollars finally invested into the lowest income areas, creating many, many jobs. So I know I can do my job as a senator. I've been showing that. And I also know that I can answer the call of what I believe my country is right now, which is leadership that's going to bring us together and not try to rip us apart. Yes.
Senate and president, as you're allowed to do in
Well,
New Jersey now?
well, I'm grateful that New Jerseyans pulled together to make sure that that possibility is there. But my focus is running for president of the United States. And I will be running hard and going directly to the people, hand to hand, shaking hands, knocking on doors. In many ways, the way I started my career when I was running for city council, I'm going out to the people, and I intend to be the next president of the United States.
Senator.
Yes, sir.
3 quick questions.
3 quick questions. You're a greedy guy. Even Cruz over here, who used to badger me in the day.
Will you do away with private health care?
Even countries that have vast access to publicly offered health care still have private health care, so no.
And what will you do about the filibuster so you can maybe move some of these issues that you want to...
The filibuster is a decision that's made in the Senate. My colleagues and everybody I've talked to believe that the legislative filibuster should stay there, and I will personally resist efforts to get rid of it.
And lastly, if President Trump attacks you on your history with banks and hedge funds, how will you respond to that?
You know, anybody who knows my history knows that my history is standing up for people that are often being hurt by bad actors. I lived in Newark during the mortgage crisis. I saw the predatory loans where people were luring people into homes who had no jobs and no income, and they gave them cash at closing. My record as a mayor, my record as a senator is fighting those interests that are trying to screw people. And when it comes to defending folk, I will be ferocious.
Senator.
Yes, in the back.
Following up on that, you know that there are some who criticize you as being too corporate among those on the left. I know you're not taking corporate PAC money, so have you changed your opinion about corporate America?
Let's be clear. Whatever you do when you're in elected office, you're going to get criticized. You know, when I was, before I got into elected office, when I helped somebody cross the street, people said I was a really nice guy. Now when I help somebody cross the street, there's somebody standing back and saying, oh, he's just trying to get a vote. There's a lot of understandable cynicism out there, and I feel like the best way to do that is with your actions. I believe we are a great nation because we have stuck up for each other. And we've got to stop bad actors from taking advantage of people. And it happens. I see it in the changes that have been made to allow credit card companies to, in my opinion, overcharge. I've fought overdraft fees as a senator. I can go through the things I've done to hold people accountable, and I think we need a lot of change, from our tax laws, making them more fair, to ending things like carried interest. I'm going to continue being the person I've always been, despite the criticism. In fact, as my mom was joking with me last night, son, if you're not being criticized, you're probably really not doing that much.
Senator.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. I've got 2 quick questions for you.
The RNC just released a statement on your candidacy this morning where they said you're a, quote, political opportunist who left Newark ridden with crime and a, quote, emblem of poverty. And I wanted to see what your reaction is to that.
Well, again, this is what we have, is people for political purposes trying to not talk about what they're for, but talk about what they're against. Newarkers, and I think people in cities all across America are tired of people that are putting down our urban spaces, trying to make them into jokes, ridiculing them, demeaning them, and degrading them. My time here in Newark, during the worst economy of my lifetime, we did things that other people thought were impossible to do. We ushered in Newark's biggest economic development period in 60 years, building our first new office towers and our first new hotels, putting Newarkers to work, constructing them, and Newarkers to work in those buildings. We brought supermarkets to food deserts. We improved our public schools to a level now. In fact, if you're a black kid in Newark, which is our majority of our schools, your chances of going to a high-performing school that beats the suburbs went up 300%. And perhaps the best thing to say to anybody who wants to criticize my leadership in Newark, when I left Newark, for the first time in 60 years, our population was growing again. People were moving here because of our schools, moving here because of our arts and entertainment, moving here because they weren't interested in tearing down this city. They wanted to be a part of this city's rising. Yeah, go ahead.
Howard Schultz has just expressed interest in running as an independent, and this has gotten a lot of criticism, particularly from Democrats who say he'd be helping Donald Trump. What's your reaction, and are you glad he's interested?
You know,
in the race?
anything you do, there's going to be competition, bring it. I believe in the American people. I think they're going to look to the Democratic Party for leadership. I believe that we are going to consolidate in this country against the politics of hate, politics of division. I think that people are tired of the demeaning and are ready for some redeeming, to reclaim ideals of civic grace and decency. And so I'm going to run a kind of campaign where I'm not focused on who else is in the race. When I was a high hurdler in El Tapan High School, my coach told me, don't look to the right and look to the left, run your race. And that's what I intend to do. Quiero dar muchas gracias a la comunidad latina porque en mi campaña en esta ciudad, sin la comunidad latina.
In Spanish. Clearly, he's fluent in both. But, once Newark mayor in a 19-degree Newark, New Jersey day there in his front yard of his home, flanked by members of the media officially announcing his bid to become the next U.S. president.